I'm Dan Kaufman. This is SBJ's Executive Insight with Veritone. I'm joined by Gary Warech, Head of Sports and Entertainment with Veritone. Thanks for being here, Gary.
It's my pleasure, Dan.
Let's start with an elevator pitch. Tell us, what is Veritone? Who is Veritone? Go ahead.
Great question. So Veritone is actually an AI company. Been around since 2014, founded by two gentlemen who were Chad Stillberg and Ryan Stillberg, who are serial entrepreneurs, created 7 different companies, sold the last one to Google. Company went public, Veritone went public in 2017. And so we're this pretty well-kept secret in the sports and entertainment space. But the company's built on a foundation of an AI operating system. It's an open architecture platform that sits underneath. It allows for AI engines to be plugged in and out as you need them. And then that fuels a variety of different solutions. Veritone goes to market in 3 specific areas. There's believe it or not, AI for HR. So it's Veritone Hire, leveraging AI technology for recruiting and being able to hire the right people much more efficiently. The second piece is the public sector. So we do a lot of work with a lot of our technology around government agencies, law enforcement agencies, the ability to leverage AI technology for efficiencies in redacting and finding bad actors, et cetera. And then the third piece is obviously the sports and entertainment and media and advertising sector. Long history in that space. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's the foundational element of Veritone. Predominantly doing business on the production and analytics side of the advertising ecosystem.
AI, artificial intelligence, we're going to talk about it a lot, and for good reason. Tell us about how Veritone is approaching AI, particularly in sports.
So the definition or the utility of AI is around efficiencies and assisting organizations to generate incremental revenue. And so from an efficiency perspective, the production side, the analytics side of the ecosystem has been in this for a long time, right? Where I believe that there's opportunity here is in educating the other side of the advertising ecosystem, the CMOs, the CROs, the revenue generating component. Where AI has been used historically has been a cost center. Folks inside organizations they need it. It's an efficiency play. Now you're seeing and hearing about camera operators without humans, right? That's all AI based and all AI driven. Yeah. The opportunity for Veritone and for the industry is an understanding of where AI plays on the revenue generating side. How do we take the cost side that we're using to better and create more efficiencies across the board to how do we help generate incremental revenues? How do we take our archives and make money from them? How do we take all of our ingesting of content, including social, including all the streaming applications, run AI engines against that content, and then be able to surface that in ways that helps organizations generate revenue.
Generative AI is all the buzz, right? ChatGPT and all that stuff. I think it's important, though, that we make sure we distinguish between generative AI and maybe what we'll call traditional AI. How would you distinguish between those two?
Yeah, so again, great question. As I said, AI has been around for a while. The invention of or the hype around ChatGPT has changed everything, right? And so that's where the unique piece that we feel we have and the industry has is to take advantage of that. There's a whole side of the ecosystem that's trying to figure it out. We've been in discussions and the industry is in discussions around we need to go and buy a startup AI company. We need to go hire a consulting AI company. There are a number of organizations from the networks to the leagues to the teams that have engaged with incubator programs to be able to go out and find the best tech and bring them back inside the organization to figure out how to approach this. And so from that perspective, that's around AI in general, but the ChatGPT craze is really where the generative AI piece is. And that simply just means the ability to generate content, right? So AI is used against your own content. The generative AI piece is the ability to then point engines and be creative, right? And so, I can take a generative AI engine against my own content and ask it to do something and ask it to create something. Go find me these logos with these athletes and write a summary. And then once I do that, use a synthetic voice to generate some sort of a play-by-play or some sort of a voiceover on the highlights using synthetic voice without the human on the loop. The generative piece is the ability to create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that example. Give us some more examples of where Veritone's technology is being used in sports now and where it might be applied.
Sure. So we, on the sports side, there's four different types of resources and solutions we're providing to the industry. One is simply just content management, right? We have a platform that sits on top of that AI operating system I talked about that folks give us their content. We then run the engines against the AI engines against that content. It allows us to be able to tag the different types of content. What does that mean? So you run various AI engines like logo recognition, facial recognition, text to speech. We transcribe everything, right? The ability to find a needle in a haystack is easy once you put data or metadata against the content, right? And so then it sits on a platform that allows organizations to be able to go ahead and find whatever they need. But the system also is built with ins and outs and plugins, right? And so for some organizations, during live event services, that system exists. All of the cameras that are being shot on site for the event come through, ultimately through Veritone. We tag it, we make it available. And then in some of our events that we work for organizations, there are over 1,000 or 2,000 media outlets around the world who are permissioned by the rights holder, right? Veritone doesn't get into the rights holders business. It's permissioned by the rights holders, and then they allow them to have inputs into the system. And so if you've got a sponsor at a particular event who's been permissioned by the rights holder, that sponsor has a plugin, can then go find the information and the video content and the audio content they need to be able to then go cut an ad in hours, because the event footage is now in the system. They can find whatever they need to find instantaneously for the most part.
Yep.
And then be able to go into an edit suite and cut the data and come out with an ad literally within hours.
Why sports now? What is the importance of the sports industry right now to Veritone?
So Veritone has been in sports for a long time, but on an isolated basis. So one of the legacy businesses of that Veritone acquired was in content licensing, right? So Veritone licenses the content for the NCAA, for a number of golf organizations, for a number of tennis organizations. We license content for people like CBS News. And so if anyone wants to use any type of footage around the NCAA, invariably it comes through Veritone. We are the licensing provider, and so we have the archives all within our purview, and then we just license that business out. So that's on the legacy side of the business. Where the opportunity has come in for us now to go heavier into sports is that ability to, the ChatGPT, everyone wants to know AI, right? And so the conversation around taking the cost side, bringing it over to the revenue side, utilizing these same exact tools that we have, we feel is a great opportunity. The sports marketing agencies, the leagues, the creative agencies are all trying to figure this out. We've been doing this for 10 years, right? We've got a decade's worth. We're pretty much the only public company that has, this experience in this space. And so we're now starting to do some consulting work and some road mapping for some of these organizations who are trying to figure out, how do I do this? And how do I make it work within all of my systems? And so it's the live event services, it's the licensing component, it's the data asset management, and then there's the creative and innovative side. And there's a lot that we can do with our sports acumen, where we're having conversations with organizations that said, this is my problem. How do I fix it using your technology? And so we've got a really cool case study where we've done some work where an organization needed to be able to listen in on the radio transmissions between the athletes or drivers or whatever you want to call them, and the truck, and the production suite. And typically the way that's been done is by humans, and it's very difficult when you have massive amounts of mics out there. Well, we were able to then take the AI component of that, build a dashboard, and make it seamless so it's instantaneous. And so the audio feeds are now feeding directly into the director and into the producer of the show, and they're able to go live with some of the audio prompts that come back. That's just taking an understanding of what a problem is and how do you push the AI and the technology to solving a particular problem.
Give us some examples of how Veritone is using AI in sports.
Sure. So one of the simplest case studies that we have is the work that we do with the San Francisco Giants. The San Francisco Giants had 75 years worth of history on tapes, right? Photos, video, audio, sitting in a warehouse, sitting under somebody's desk, and didn't know what really to do with it. And so what Veritone did is we came in and we helped them digitize all of that content. Once it's digitized, you then run AI engines across it. You then are able to then put that metadata on it. So you run logo recognition and facial recognition. It allows you to be able to identify who's in those films or who's in those pictures. And so now it sits on a platform that the San Francisco Giants personnel have full control over their archive. And so one of the uses of that type of a technology is the ability to use it for fan engagement, right? So inside the stadium during games, they can run all kinds of trivia components using the history of all of their greats that otherwise have been sitting on the cutting room floor in somebody's basement, right? You can take that type of information and now push it out to social media. You can put sponsorship components around it and sell sponsorships to some sort of an in-game program. Again, it's about getting that content inside a system tagged so that you can find what you're looking for, and then being able to become creative with it to then figure out how to A, use it for fan engagement, and B, generate revenue.
Any other examples?
Yeah, I think one of the really good examples, we just came off of our involvement with World Athletics, which is the World Track and Field Championships in Budapest. There, it's all of the camera feeds come in through Veritone, invariably sit inside what we call our digital media hub, which is that content management asset component, which then World Athletics has the ability to service all of their media partners, all of their global rights, permissioned entities. They're able to then, push it to their sponsors and give their sponsors access to that platform. And then on the back end of that, there's always the opportunity to house all of that data, archive it, and be able to then monetize it as well. And so it's, we are actually not on site at that particular event, but all of that takes place because of the technology, remotely. And so we service that business from a variety of spots all over the globe. And so you don't necessarily need someone inside the building or on the compound to be able to facilitate, this type of technology.
I'm going to ask you to predict a little bit for us. No one's going to hold you to this, but let's look 12 months, 24 months, 36 months out. What is going to be the most important story when it comes to AI in sports?
Yeah, that's a good question. I over the next 12 months, I feel like the feeling out process is going to make its way through, and you're going to start to see the networks, the sports leagues, really try to understand how to take this AI and bring it into their existing workflows. I think that's the first hurdle that has to happen, right? How do I take all of my social media feeds, connect them with my live event feeds, put them into a platform so that everyone inside the organization can use the same tools at the same time so that there's no overlap, creates humongous amounts of efficiencies. I think that's the next phase. And then, 24, 36, I think it's going to be, I think the sky's the limit. The technology is just increasing at such a rapid pace. You're going to hear things, coming out from Sports Business Journal about, new technologies every day. From, like I mentioned, cameras that don't need people anymore to the ability to use cloned voices for play-by-play. We actually have a product in the market now where we're taking the stats performed, digitized, play-by-play data at a raw level, and using any type of language in a cloned voice to be able to produce play-by-play without having anybody in a studio or any human, on the loop at all. And so those technologies are going to continuously get better and better, and I think you're going to start to see more and more of that over the next 24 months.
Yeah. Amazing opportunities in AI. I think we have to address, though, some of the concerns that the public has about it. Congress is looking at it and the president is looking at it. So, tell us about how Veritone approaches some of those maybe negative concerns that people have about, oh my gosh, AI is going to do this, that, and the other. I'm scared.
Yeah. So big issue, big concern inside the organization or inside the industry.
Yeah.
So Veritone has a platform called AI for Good.
Okay.
Right. And so at a foundational level, it's about, first and foremost, it's about transparency, it's about trust, it's about compliance, and it's about empowerment. Everything Veritone does is completely transparent. You have to have that. We are the caretakers of people's private content, right? Whether it's an archive, whether it's a live feed, whether, we're doing work for organizations who manage talent. And so we're creating, media lockers where the talent can have a secure space to have all of their content so they can decide what to do with it and act on it. Without that trust, without that transparency, it will all break down. And so the empowerment component is around empowering the owners and the rights holders to be able to be trusted with a person, with an organization, so that they can then be empowered to go do what they need to do. And so there's that component of it. It's definitely a concern. There will always be bad actors out there, but there are technologies that are popping up that are going to allow, or at least be designed to be able to decipher what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful that kicks in pretty well.
Looking forward to it. Gary, thanks very much for your time. I'm Dan Kaufman of the Sports Business Journal. This has been your Executive Insight with Veritone. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.